go ahead and begin. As always on Fridays, I like to show you a live example first so you can see what we're going to be building today. So let's go to our website. Okay, just bear with me for 1 second here. Alright, so let's do this. Okay, so today's application is more of a request application, which means that let's say employees can, let's say you work at a hotel or in a university, and employees can find something that's wrong with the equipment. Let's say a laptop is broken or a light bulb is out. They can submit a request to a technician, and once that request is submitted, technician can go on site and they can fix that. And they can also leave updates if it's completed, if it's in progress, and they can update the staff member where they are along in the process of fixing that request. So let's go ahead and log in as one of the staff members. And you can see when Mary logs into her account, we have a nice welcome message, and we can see all of the requests that Mary has submitted. We can see the request type, we can also see the subclass, we can see the description of the request, who that request has been assigned to, and then we can see the status of the request, in progress, completed, new, and then we can also click on view updates to see all the updates that the technicians are submitting regarding that request. If you wanted to submit a new request, let's say you're inside a classroom 251, you go to new request, you can select emergency if it's a yes or no, request type, and we have 4 options here. Now today's application is a little bit more challenging and a bit more robust, which means that based on my selection here, one of these 4 types, there is a specific technician assigned to that request type. So if I select building repair, you can see it's going to go to Tom. Tom is going to get notified on this email of this request. Now I had left these fields exposed on purpose so you can see the cascading drop-down effect. However, in the actual application, we're going to hide these fields. There's no reason for the staff member to see this. And any one of these subclass items, if I select heating or light bulb, you can see that it still goes to Tom because he's responsible for those requests. If I select equipment repair, it's going to go to a different user. If I select IT computer, it's going to go to a different technician. So this is what we're doing here. So basically, based on the type of request, each specific technician is going to be notified in that university or that hotel that they need to be assigned to that specific request. And then you'll say a number of items that need to be fixed. For example, if I select printing issues, let's say 5 printing issues. Serial number, let's just add something here. Room number can be 251. Then you add your description. And the account number can be something random as well. And then you click submit. Okay, your submission was successful. You can click here to submit a new request if you'd like. If you go to my request, now you'll see that that new request has been added to our report. We can see that it's a new request. We can go to view updates, and we can notice here that there are no updates on that request. You can also log in as the technician. Technician has its own interface. So if I log in as, let's say, Tom, there's the welcome message, and now I can see all of the requests pending for Tom and all the other employees, or all the other technicians. So this specific application actually has all the technicians being able to see all the other requests. So for example, let's say if Harry's on vacation or something like that as Tom, I'd like to be able to see that request, and I would like to be able to add updates to that request if I know it's something that I can fix on his behalf. So for example, let's assume that Harry's on a vacation, is not going to be coming back. I'll go over here as Tom, add an update, and I'll say okay, and then you click submit. And then you can see that note down below of my update. I can also now say that it's in progress and click on update. And then when I go to pending requests, you can see now that this request is in progress. And now as an employee, as Mary, if I refresh this page, I'm able to see that request or that update submitted by Tom. Okay? And also what you can do as a technician, you can also go to search all requests, and then you can search based on any one of the technicians. If it's an emergency, status, click search. And This should load in just a few seconds. And you can see that all of the requests are grouped based on service ID for all of the technicians. And we can see all of the notes here to the right are all the updates for that specific request. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the line now to see if anybody has any questions before I begin building today's application. Okay, so let's go inside our Caspio account. I also have a sample template set up here. This is where we're going to deploy our application. You can see those two tabs, one for the technicians and one for the staff members. And this over here is our live example, so I'll be going back and forth, tabbing back and forth to see what we're doing along the way. Okay, so inside our Caspio account, you can see that this application has 12 data pages. Here is my demo application. I have actually made a copy of it, and I'm going to click on Open to open up this application. You'll see that we have 0 data pages built. And in the interest of saving time, I have already built our user table. Again, if you're just starting out at Caspio, and if you're not familiar how to build a user table, I do recommend you attend the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday session first so you can learn how to do this. In our Friday sessions, we try to build an application from scratch, so we do have to save a little bit of time because we only have 1 hour to build the application. And for those of you who have attended my training sessions in the past, here's our user table, so this should look very familiar to you. We have all of our employee names listed. Each employee has its own unique ID, some basic information. Here's my employee email address, their passwords, and then here with the checkboxes, right away we can see who's the supervisor, which is Chris. We can see all the technicians. We can see all our staff members, and everybody currently has status to log into their account, so everybody's an active employee. Let's go to table design just really quickly. You can see user ID, auto number. Then we have some basic information, password, email is unique, and then we have our checkboxes to identify our user level, including the status, which is also yes and no. I have also created our views to filter our users. So we have the staff view, supervisor view, and technician view. And then we also have the authentication set up, so staff, supervisor, and technician already created. Again, if you are starting out, just feel free to attend the Monday through Wednesday session and you'll learn how to use the authentications, the views, and the tables. Okay? Alright, so the first step that we can do here, because we have this lookup table in our form to submit a new request, I had to create a lookup table to be able to pull. So if I select this request and any one of these subclass menus, to be able to select the employee name. So in Excel, I created a lookup table. So let me show you my Excel file. I had it opened up just a second ago. Maybe I closed it on accident. So let me open up my Excel file. Just bear with me for a second here. Here it is. Okay, so I had created this table here in Excel really quickly. You can see that for every request, supply order, building repair, we have the subclass here. So it's a cascading dropdown. And if anybody selects any one of these two, building repair or supply order, it's going to go to Tom as the employee name. So I had to repeat Tom's name here in the third column. And then we have Tom's email address, and we have Tom's user ID. In our main table inside Caspio, my computer is a little bit glitchy today. So if you look at the staff table, you'll see that Tom is user ID number 1, Richard is 2. So let's go back to Excel. You'll see that Richard is user ID number 2, Tom is 1, and then we have Harry, who is number 3. So this is a basic lookup table that I created in Excel, and the reason why I used Excel instead of Caspio is because Excel allows you to copy things really quickly. So for example, you can see that I can drag my fields, and that's going to create copies of that name. So use Excel to build any lookup table that you like, and then simply what you can do is upload this table into your Caspio account. And again, just to recap on the cascading dropdown, for every subclass, you need to repeat the main class, which is that request type. Okay, and then of course the name of the employee who's going to be assigned to that request. So let's go ahead and upload this table into our Caspio account. Let's go to tables. Let's click on Tools and Import. And let's locate that file on our computer. Next. And let's call this, actually we're going to first upload this into our Caspio Contact Demo Training app that we just created. And let's call this Technician Lookup. Click Next. And you'll see that Caspio is going to give me a sample of what we're uploading inside our account. And close. And let's go back inside our application to our tables. And there is no table. That's interesting. I just uploaded it here and it's not showing it. Did I upload it somewhere else? Let me try that one more time. So we're going to click on Import. That's strange. Okay, let's try that tech lookup, give it a name, click on Next. That's our data. We're going to click on Import. Okay, import it, 16 records. We're going to click on Close. And hopefully it should be in there. Okay, so there's our second table that we just uploaded. I don't know where I made a mistake before. It should have been there in the first place. So now let's click on Open, and you can see that just like on an Excel file, we have that data inside our Caspio account under Tables. Okay, and this is going to serve as our lookup table. So if I select this request and any one of these submenus, it's going to go to this employee, and this email is going to be notified, and of course the user ID is there as well. When I build my applications, I like to have a lot of lookup tables. So I'm going to create two more lookup tables for now. The first one that's going to be is for the status. So that's going to be my field. I'm going to click on Save, and let's call it Status. And I'm going to open up my status table now and just manually enter some of my options here. So we'll say New, In Progress, and Completed. Okay, so that's going to be the lookup table. Always get into a habit of creating lookup tables, because when you build your forms and reports, it's always easy just to connect to that table without you having to create custom values every time. I'm also going to create a table for emergency, because I use this table quite frequently inside my application. So we're going to click on Save. And for this one, all I'm going to add is just the option for yes and no. And so everyone knows what this lookup table is for. If I go to our live example, you can see the emergency field up here, and it just has yes and no. Okay? And then our status, it doesn't have it here, but let me see if I can show you the status. This is the status, but you can see that the staff member doesn't have to deal with the status. It's usually on the over here for my technicians. If I search requests, I can see that there's my lookup table for status. Let's see if I need another lookup table here for now. I think I'm good enough for now. I can start building a few of my things here inside my application. So let's go to Data Pages now. And as always, try to build your folders to identify each one of your user groups. So my first folder is going to be Supervisor. Second folder is going to be Technician. And last one is going to be for our staff members. And then for this specific application, we'll just use, let's say for education, for example. If you are inside a classroom and one of the teachers notifies or notices something that's missing or broken, they can notify the technician responsible for those types of requests. Okay, so we can start building our application. And the first thing that I like to build is the ability for staff members to be able to input that request. And I am missing one more table, so we need to create a request table for this application, so staff members can actually submit a request. So let's build that table. And we're going to create user ID so we can stamp and see which one of our users or which one of the staff members is submitting that request. We also want request ID. This is going to be an auto number. So every request that gets submitted, it needs to get an auto number, right? So if it's a new request, that's going to be an assigned number to that request. Submitted by, so we can see the employee that submitted that request. Emergency. So emergency is going to be that field to select yes and no, and this is where we're going to use that lookup table to select yes or no. Request type. So the request type field is going to be where you select one of those four options that we have. If it's IT, if it's building repair. And sub request is the second option below the second drop down. And then we'll have number of items that need to be fixed. Assigned to. So the assigned to field, I'm actually going to move that up one. So when I select a request and I select my submenu, it's going to cascade in and select based on that lookup table that we have, technician lookup table. It's going to be assigned to that specific user. And the email notification, I'm also going to move that up. So basically when I select this and this, it's going to cascade and select my employee or technician name and then the technician's email. And this is why we have that lookup table. So if you look at my request form, these are the four fields that I'm just setting up inside my table. Okay, so if I select this request, this is the subclass assigned to this employee and the email notification. And all of this is being derived from our lookup table that we created in Excel. So if I select this and this, it's going to go to Tom, and that's the email that's going to be assigned to him. And I'll show you how to set this up in just a couple of minutes. So we had number of items, then we had serial number, room number, and just a few more fields here. Description field, that's going to be a text 64,000. Oh, I can't use that, so I have to type it out. Account number, and we have two more, so we'll have date created, so we know what date and time that request was created, and last one we'll have status. And of course this table needs to have the status field because when you first submit a request, it's going to be a new request, and I'll show you how to add that default field new inside the submission form. Okay, so let's go ahead and just make sure everything looks good. I think it does, and we're going to go ahead and save that table. And let's call it requests. Okay, so I like when actually this comes up, duplicate name, request table. Because I'm already using a table name in a different application that I have, I cannot use the same name, so I just have to rename it and say, let's say TBL for table. Okay, so there is my request table. If I open it, you'll see that it's a blank table, so we don't have any requests submitted by our staff members yet. So now we can go to data pages, and under the staff folder, let's build a new data page. And what you need is a submission form, because we'd like to be able to submit a new request as a staff member. So you select submission form, and that's going to be based on that request table that we just built, because that's where all the fields are. And I just have a couple of styles and localizations here that I can add to my application, and we'll call this data page new request form. If you're not sure what styles and localizations do to your application, these two tabs, styles is used to change the look and feel and the appearance of your app, so colors, layout, and localization changes the language of your application. We cover this in our Thursday session. Always get into the habit of enabling this checkbox, both of these checkboxes, advanced options and parameters. You may not need it for your application, but instead of having to go back if you do end up forgetting about it, just enable both of these in the beginning if you remember. That way you don't have to backtrack and enable them again if you ever need them. So I always usually enable these two checkboxes in my data page wizard. Okay, so now we need to restrict access based on the staff member authentication that we created. And if you are again joining us for the first time, we do cover this in the Tuesday session. So make sure you attend that session so you can learn how to create authentications. So we're going to password protect based on the staff authentication. And then I'm going to need all of my fields inside my form. So I'm going to drag all these fields to the right. Except for these two, you can see that the request ID is an auto number. That's going to automatically populate. And date created is a timestamp, so it's going to automatically stamp the date and time of the submission. Okay, so we have the user ID. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to hide this field and go to the Advanced tab, and we're going to say the authenticated field, which is the user ID from our authentication table. Okay, so the staff member doesn't need to see this field. It's just going to stamp their user ID from the staff table into the form. Submitted by, again, we can also hide this field, and based on the authenticated field, we can use the employee name. So in our table, it's going to stamp the employee's name with that submission. And now we get to the emergency field. So if you remember, we created the lookup table. So instead of this being a text field, I'm going to make this a drop-down. And we're going to use both custom values and lookup table. And as the first option under custom values, we're going to say select, delete the value, because you're not really selecting that. I'm going to make this field required, which means they have to fill that in. And then the lookup table is our emergency lookup table that we have, which just has the yes and no option. Okay, then the request type. So this is the only complicated thing inside this application, if you ask me, on how to set up, which is this cascading option for these 4 fields. So the request type, it's going to be a drop-down. Again, we do both here, lookup table and custom values. So we'll say select request or select type, delete the value, and in the lookup table is going to have that technician lookup table that we uploaded from our Excel that we created initially. So we have the tech lookup. Field for display is going to be the main class. Actually, let me show you the Excel file. So the first thing that's going to show is the main class in the dropdown, which is this column, these 4 options that we have. So we select main class from that lookup table. Then the sub request, which is the second column, this one here. This one is going to be a cascading dropdown. So not a dropdown, but a cascading dropdown. Parent field is going to be request type, because this is the parent field, one above that. Table for lookup is going to be the tech lookup table that we have. Filter based on main class, which is the request type. And field for display is going to be the subclass. So what this means, this setup here, is if I select this, it's going to show me these 4 options. If I select this, building repair, it's going to show me these 5 options. So that's what cascading dropdown does. And just make sure you have your table set up correctly. So that's the subclass. And then the assigned to is also going to be a cascading dropdown. Parent field is going to be the request type, one up here. Then we need the lookup table, again. Filter based on main class. And field for display is going to be the employee name. So now we're going to display the employee name. So again, what this means that if I select any one of these options here, it's going to select a name based on this option here. And then we have last but not least, which is the email notification. So again, cascading dropdown. Parent field is the request type. Same lookup table. Filter based on main class. And field for display, I want the email. Okay, and you'll see in just a minute how this works now. So let's just configure the rest of the fields. So we have this one, that's a text field. Text field, description field can be a text area. Account number can be a text field, and the status. So because it's a new request, if you look at the form, I'm not displaying the status field anywhere here. I made it hidden because I want the new request to be quote-unquote new. Okay, so we'll go to data pages and we'll actually hide this field, and default value that I want to give it is new. So every time they click submit in the table, it's going to stamp it as new. And the reason why I have this email notification field inside my table becomes very important in the next step, which is on the next screen. After the user says your submission was successful, so when they click submit, you're going to enable the acknowledgement email, and you're going to select that notification email field. Okay, because on the next screen, you're going to configure the email notifications. So when the user submits or selects that request and that email is associated with that request, you can say new request at .edu, let's just say, subject new request. And now you can say, I don't know, you can customize the message. You can say, you have a new request. Please log in to review. Sincerely, University. Okay, so now every time somebody submits a request and this email is associated with that request and they click submit, an email is going to be triggered, and this email is the message that that technician is going to receive on that email address. Okay, so now they'll know they need to log into their account and see what the new request is. So now they can log in and add updates. Okay, so this is how you set up that automatic notification email based on the notification email based on our lookup table. Okay, let's click finish now. Let's see what we have. So here's our first data page. If I click on preview, you'll see that it has a login screen that it requires us to log in because we set up the authentication. I'm going to go ahead and just deploy this right away to my website, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and embed this code into my web page. And we're going to add that to the new request HTML page. Here's my deploy code placeholder. I'm going to paste my Caspio code here. Click on save. And let's go ahead and refresh our template here. So we have the new request, and there's the login screen on my website. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, I hope I'm not overwhelming you too much. This is actually fairly easy, and you would understand it much better if you attend the Monday through Thursday session first, because that's where we learn all the basics. And I'm using straight HTML here to edit my code. If you are using Wix or GoDaddy or WordPress, they have a much simpler way of drag and drop where you can paste the Caspio code into your web pages. But I work directly inside HTML, and I have my placeholder here for my web page, which is called newrequest.html. So then if you look at my web page, it's newrequest.html, and here's that data page embedded in that part of my website. Okay. So now we can go ahead and log in as Mary, who is inside my table as one of the staff members, and I'm going to click on, or enter the password and click on login. There's that form that we just built inside our account. Okay. Here's our lookup table, the yes and no, request type. We have those 4 request types from our lookup table that we uploaded from Excel. So there are the 4 request types. Okay, so if everything works correctly now, if I select building repair, you can see now that that's the name associated with that repair and the email as well. And this doesn't matter. If I select this, it's still going to go to Tom. And once I fill out the rest of this information and click submit, this email notification is going to receive an email right away to let them know, hey, there's a new request, log into your account to add an update. Okay, so we'll say yes, and let's just make sure that it works. So we'll say equipment repair, good, IT, good, and supply order, good. So these are all the different names that receive that specific request type. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and maybe select IT computer repair. We'll say networking issues, number of items 45, serial number, room number, description, drivers. Okay, click submit. Email is triggered, so the email now went to that email address that we had inside our form, which was this one here. And now if I go to my request, you'll see that we have nothing here to display because we haven't built that data page yet. If I go inside my tables, and if I look at the request table now, you're going to be able to see some data. Okay, so we can see the user ID of that request, who submitted the request. We can see the request ID. We can see that Mary was the one who submitted that request. And now you can see the status is new because we made a default value new. Okay? And of course we can see who that request was assigned to, which is Harry Burns. He is responsible for those specific requests. Now let me just check the time here. Alright, so we do have to move on here. So under staff, let's build a report that lets us see all of the requests. For as a staff member, I want to be able to see these requests. So we'll click on new data page. And this time I want to build a report tabular format that's going to display all of those requests. That's going to be based on the request table. View my requests. And again, always get into a habit of doing this. Request based on the staff authentication. We're not going to search anything, so let's just filter our data. And as a staff member, I just want to be able to see my own requests. So we do need to enable record level security here based on the user ID. Not going to filter based on anything. And let's just have it in the results page. We're going to display a couple of these fields. So we have date created and just a couple of fields here. So let's have, if it's an emergency, date created, request type, assigned to, maybe a description field and a status field inside the results page. You can include as many fields as you like inside the results page. It's completely up to you. Not going to make any changes here. However, you can see that now we have this link here that's called View Updates, where we have to pass a parameter or that request ID to the details page to be able to see all the updates submitted by the technicians. Now, this is covered in our Wednesday session. I have to speed through this. Hopefully, for those of you who have attended my prior sessions, this should make sense. I'm going to insert an HTML block here and create a hyperlink. View updates. And the page that I call to view the updates, it's called, let me just refresh my memory here. It's called managerupdates.html. So I called it managerupdates.html, and I need to pass that request ID. So I'm going to call it RID for request ID equals sign, and to insert a parameter request ID as a string. So now on my results page, every time I click on this link, it's going to pass the request ID to the details page, and then I can see all of the updates made by the technicians on this page. Okay, we click next. Not going to make any changes here. Let's click next, and no details page. Finish. Here's my second data page. I'm going to go ahead and deploy this now and embed this code to my requests.html page. So we're going to go back to my HTML, and it's called my request. Here's my placeholder for my code. I'm going to save my script, refresh my page, and there are all my requests submitted by Mary. If I make a new request, say it's not an emergency, and we'll say supply order, serial number, room number, description, random message, number, submit. Then I go to my requests, and now I can see both of those requests. When I click on View Updates, you'll see that it's going to take me to this page where I have to deploy some codes to be able to see those updates. Well, the first thing that I need to build is the details page, because when I click on this, I'd like to be able to see some basic information from my table, from the request table, and then I'd like to be able to see the updates. So I need two data pages on this page here that's called managerupdates.html. Okay, so let me build my data page now for the details view. So we'll go to reports and we'll select the details view page. And this is going to be based on the request table. And let's call this details view. And again, we're going to enable both of these. And again, we have to restrict based on the staff authentication. We're going to filter. And we need to filter the details page based on the request ID. So because I'm passing it from the results page, I'm receiving it in the details page, request ID inside a details page via that hyperlink that we created earlier. So advanced tab, receive parameter externally as RID. So we called it RID for request ID. And in the details view, I just want to be able to see the status, date created, assigned to, and maybe these two fields. Again, you can include as many as you like. We're going to click on finish here. And now what I want to do is deploy this data page to my manager updates page, which is this one here. Okay, so let me go back to my HTML here, and we're going to call that manager updates, and here's my deploy code placeholder. Paste that in here, save my script, and let me walk you through this step by step. So let me refresh. And now when I click on this, we're going to pass the value of RID1. If you look in the bottom left hand corner of my screen, I'm passing the RID1. I can pass RID2 because I have two requests. And maybe I just have to refresh. Yeah, I have to refresh my deploy code here. So let me try one more time. If I click on 1, it's going to show the status as new, date created, assigned to, request type, and sub request. If I go back, and if I select the second one, I have to refresh, you can see that now this has been assigned to somebody else, this request. Okay, so it's just a details view that shows me a little bit of information about my request, but in order to do this, we have to pass that value through a hyperlink and receive it to see that information. And now we can create those updates for when a technician submits or adds a note, we're able to see those notes or the updates regarding that request. Alright, so now let's work on the technician side. And the technician is going to be able to see the requests and also be able to add notes for each one of those requests. So under technician, new data page, and we're going to go with the report. Let's go with the tabular format based on the request table because that's where all the requests are. Same style, and let's call this pending requests. And let me just take a look at my live example to see what I've done here. Okay, so notice that I'm only showing the in progress and new requests. I'm not showing any completed requests in this report because these are all the pending requests. Okay, so we're doing some filtering here to be able to filter our data based on the status. So it only shows these types. So for example, if I go ahead and click on add update for this one that's in progress, actually how about this one up here for equipment repair, and if I say completed and click on update, if I go back to my pending requests, you'll see that that's no longer listed under pending requests, but I can search for it. So we're basically filtering some data here based on the status field. So request table, new start pending request, enable, and then we're going to restrict based on the technician authentication that we created. Okay. So we're not going to search, we're going to filter. And we don't need to set RLS because all the technicians are going to be able to see all the other technicians' requests. And we're going to filter based on the status field because we want to show either in progress or new requests, but not the completed ones. So we select the status to be able to filter on that field. And then what you're going to do is you're going to insert a criteria which has two more options, and now you can set it up so it only shows you the in progress or new. And the first thing you want to do is set it up as or. It should show me this one or that one. So if it's new or in progress, I want to be able to show those. I think it's or. It may be and, but we'll double check on that in just a second. So let's click on criteria. If it's new or in progress. Okay, and you can insert more criteria if you'd like to be able to filter more values that you have in your table. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's set to or. So if it's new or in progress, I want to show it. Or if it's this and that, I want to show it. I'm going to set it up as or for now. In the results page, so let's see, what are we displaying here for technicians? So we're grouping based on who it's been assigned to. Okay, so assigned to, I want date created. I also want submitted by. I want these two as well. And perhaps room number, and you can include as many fields as you'd like. This is really up to you what you include inside the results page. On the next screen, I want to group based on the assigned, so who that request has been assigned to. So we're going to go to grouping, enable it, and expand it by default. So this is how you create a group to be able to group based on a specific field. And one thing that you can see in our live example, we also have that link to pass a parameter. Okay, so I do have to create an HTML block here as well. So we're going to insert an HTML block inside the results page. Move that all the way down if you want. Now let's create that hyperlink here to pass that parameter. Add note is what we called it. And the page that I called for this is, let's see here, I think I called it request updates. Let me just double check here. Request updates, yep, that's the one. So let's go back to our account and let's just say request updates.html and then a question mark, and we're passing RID, request ID, as a string to this page, and then we're going to receive that value in the details page. So click next, next, and we're going to disable the details page and finish. Okay, so now let's deploy this for the technicians under pending requests. So we're going to embed this code to our page, which is called pending requests, and save our script. And let's go to our website now, refresh. Alright, so let's go ahead and log in as Tom. And as you can see, now we can see who all of those requests have been assigned to. Okay, so here he has one request and Tom also has one request. Let's just make one more submission to make sure that it works. So it's not an emergency, request type. It's going to go to Tom, number of items, serial number, room number, description, request, just in, and submit. So now when we refresh, okay, so Tom now has two requests. Okay, so now we can go ahead and add a note for that specific request by clicking on this link. So if I click on this, I now need to create my data page to be able to add that new request or that new note. Okay, so let's go back to our Caspio account, and under the technician folder we're going to build some data pages where we can add that note. But before I can do that, if I go back to my table, notice that we have no table to store all of those notes. So I have to create a table that we're going to where those notes are going to be stored. So new table. And the fields that I need is, again, request ID, because I now need to receive that request, and that needs to be a number. And I do apologize for the ones that are just joining us for the first time. I know this is probably overwhelming, but it will make a lot more sense once you attend our Monday to Thursday sessions, because that's where we work on the basics and build all the way up to our Friday session, where this is making a lot more sense. And if you do it a couple of times, I do mention this a lot, if you do it once or twice, then you're going to be able to see just how easy this is. And I do apologize if it does seem like a daunting task to do this, which is really not that difficult to do once you get the hang of it. So request ID to receive that, and then we're going to say, let's see, what else do I need? Or log by. So I want to stamp the employee's name that's submitting that, or the technician's name that's submitting that note. And the note itself, I'm going to make that text 64,000, and date submitted. So we can see what date and time that note was added. So this is going to be a timestamp. And this is really all the fields that I would like to have in my notes table. So I'm going to save that, and let's call it notes table. Okay, so there's another table that we just built. And now we can go to data pages, and under technicians, we can build a submission form for them to add a note. Okay, so let's click on new data page. I'll need a submission form based on the notes table. There it is. And we'll call this add new form. Enable both of these. I need to restrict based on technician table or authentication. And I need all of my fields inside the form. And now what you can do is request ID, because we're receiving that RID. So if you look at our example, if I click on add note, and if you look in the bottom left hand corner, I'm receiving field called RID, or parameter called RID. Okay, so now I need to receive that RID inside my submission form. So basically, there's the request ID. In the advanced tab, we're going to receive that value externally as RID, because whatever you called it, that's the same way you need to receive it. Log by, We're going to hide this field based on the authentication, and we're going to stamp the employee's name. They do not need to see their name. They already know who they are when they log inside their account. And then the note, I'm going to make this a text area so they can type in some notes. And here, when they submit the note, they don't need to see the confirmation message. We're just going to have this be as the same form. Okay, and what this means, basically, if you look at the live example, so if I add an update to this, there's that add note form that we're building. So if I say new note, click submit, you'll see there's no confirmation message, it just refreshes the form. But I can see my logs here inside a report below. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue here. Finish. And I'm going to deploy my form inside the request updates page. Request updates. Paste that code in here and save. And now in our live example, when I refresh, and I add note, here's the form. And I left this field exposed on purpose just so I can explain a little bit for the beginners here. We're receiving the value ID 1 from the results page. So if I clicked on the second one, you're going to be able to see, I have to refresh. Let me refresh this page here. You can see we're receiving request ID 2. If I go back and click on this one, I'm receiving request ID number 3. Okay, so this is what we mean by passing parameters in Caspio. This is not a Caspio thing, this is the industry standard. Everybody does that. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, they all pass parameters and URLs. And if you wanted to build a functional application on your website, this is fairly easy to do. When you do it once or twice, you're going to be able to do this every single time. But basically, you're receiving and passing IDs inside the URLs. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and hide this field because the user doesn't need to see this. Okay, this is just this should be running in the back end behind the scenes. So I'm going to go ahead and edit my form. And when you get to the configuration screen for request ID, this is how you receive it inside this form, but I'm actually going to hide this field. Okay, click finish. Okay, it's still there, you just don't see it because the technician doesn't need to see that. Okay, so now that we can add notes, I'd like to be able to display the notes so technicians can see what they're submitting. So we're going to build a new data page. And this time I'm going to build a report. And let's go with the list layout. List layout is commonly used when you have notes and logs instead of a tabular, which is rows and columns. It's not really the best layout for notes. So let's go with the list layout. And we're going to use the notes table because that's where all the notes are stored. And let's call this view notes. I'm actually going to use a different style. I'm going to use my Sage style here to display that. And we need to restrict access for technicians because they're the only ones who need to log in and be able to see those notes. We're not going to search. We're going to filter and receive parameters. And we need to receive that request ID inside the results page as well. Advanced tab, external parameter, and we need to call it the same way, which is RID. And in the results page now, I want to show the log by, note, and date submitted. I'm just going to rearrange this so date submitted goes underneath log by, and then we can see the notes. Not going to make any changes here. We're going to disable the details page. Finish. And now let's go ahead and deploy this code underneath our submission form. So let's go to request updates. And all I'm going to do is paste this new code underneath my submission form. So now we have two data pages deployed on a single web page. Okay, so you can see no records found, right? So if I go to pending requests, click on add note, no records found. So let's add a note. Let's say working on this at the moment. And there it is, log by Tom, who's the technician. We can see date submitted and the note itself. Let's go to pending request. Let's go to the second one, And now you can see that there are no logs for the second request. Okay, but you can add a note if you'd like. Okay, pending requests. The third one also just to make sure that it's working correctly. Good, there are no notes. Okay, but if I go back to the first one, you can see now we have notes available for this specific one. So now the technicians can see the notes. Well, I want my staff members to be able to go to view updates and also be able to see those notes as well. Okay, so we go back to data pages under staff folder. We're going to build that data page for them to be able to see the notes as well. And this is really quick. So you click on your data page. You're going to go to reports, list layout based on the notes table, and you can also call this view notes. And we're going to use the Sage style. And you also want to restrict access based on the staff because that needs to be password protected as well. We're going to filter so we do not need to search anything. And you're going to be filtering based on, well actually, yeah, the request ID. So we have to receive the request ID as well. So you include that and you receive it as RID. Because again, remember inside our live example for staff, we are also passing RID to the details page here as well to be able to see those notes. So you're passing the request ID and you're receiving the request ID via the web. So there's the RID. And then in the results page, I want to be able to see date submitted, logged by, and the note. And we're not going to make any changes here. Let's click Finish. Okay, so now let's go ahead and deploy this in the Manager Updates page for our staff members. Manager Updates. And all I'm going to do here is deploy that code underneath my details page code, like this. And then let's refresh. Okay, view updates. And there's the update by Tom. Okay, so I can see the details of the message and I can also see the notes submitted by Tom. If I go to the second one, I'm not going to be able to see any notes as a staff member until a technician adds that note. So we're going to go to this one and we'll say almost finished. Click Submit. And now as a staff member, we can see that note almost finished. So we can keep track of our requests that we submitted as the employees or as the staff of this university. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions now. I know I'm running out of time here. Is there anything that I didn't cover here that you'd like to see? I'm going to open up the line here. But this is really how you set this up. I mean, if I wasn't explaining it, you can build this in about 20 minutes really quickly. The most important thing about this application is to set up your lookup table correctly and have that be aligned to your user table from your application. That way you can create that cascading effect, so when you submit a request, depending on what you submit, you can see that I'm repeating these requests, because every time I select building repair, this is going to be the submenu. Tom is responsible for it, and I want that email associated with that request, so I can notify that technician that if I select this or this technician receives that update or that email that he needs to fix that, he or she. Okay, so this is our lookup table that I created in Excel, and inside our application we have 6 tables. Okay, and most of these tables are really just basic lookup tables, like the emergency lookup, that's a yes and no. Then we have the status lookup. This is the table that we created in Excel. And the 3 most important tables that we have is the staff table to identify all the users of the application. So again, if you are new, if you have multiple user groups for your application. Thanks, Stephen. Let me know if you have any specific questions afterwards. Feel free to send me an email offline, and I'm happy to assist you. And I do hope to see you in our future sessions as well. Okay, then we have the request table and the notes table to be able to submit those notes. Now, a lot of the applications that you build may not require that you pass parameters using these links. So your application may not need this. This is more of an advanced setup. If you are looking to create something a bit more robust and sophisticated, that's why sometimes you have to use these links to pass parameters inside a details page to be able to see things like this, where we have a one-to-many effect where we can see multiple logs for that specific ID, for that specific value. Okay. So let me open up the line now, see if anybody has any questions. It is quite of a challenging application to build in 1 hour, especially when you have to explain it. So I'm going to unmute the line now. Let me know if there are any questions here. And again, today's session has been recorded, so if you want to see how this was done, just send me an email afterwards. One thing I didn't show you, which I thought I would have more time to do, but I didn't have the time, is if you look at this application here, I have a nice welcome message for Mary and a logout link here, so the user knows who they are when they log into their account. If you look at my application I've been working on, I don't have that set up here, but really quickly, just to show you how that's done, if you go to data pages, and let's go to our staff folder, I'm going to build a new data page. And I'm going to build an HTML data page, okay? Because you can see that it's not really a data page to display data, it's just some HTML, it's just text. This is what I want to display. So HTML data page, you're going to restrict that based on the staff authentication, and I usually like to call these welcome screen. Enable both of these checkboxes, and then here is where you're going to write that out. You can say welcome, and then you're going to insert their name that's available from the staff table, like this, and I'll add this, and I'm going to create my basic hyperlink for logout, like this, and then you're going to grab the logout link from the authentication tab. Okay, I'll show you how to do that in just a second. I'm just going to go ahead and click on finish here. And now we're going to deploy this code, and we're going to go ahead and paste that code directly above this data page under my request.html page. So if you go to my requests, and here's my data page, I'm just going to paste that one above this one, save my script, and there's that welcome message. Okay. One more cool thing just to show you when it comes to the deploy code. All you really need from the deploy code, just to make things cleaner for yourself, because the deploy code has a lot of stuff going on here. You can actually remove the top line, which is in between the div. You really don't need, this is the Caspio branding. Now, this Caspio branding is still going to be there if you have a custom account. But if you're on the standard account, you can remove the top line. You don't need that because that removes the branding. It's just an additional line of code. And you don't need the bottom line either. I usually like to delete this. This is an error message. You can see that. Click here to load this Caspio data page. And you can see how much cleaner just the script is for your deploy code. Same thing for this second one. I'm going to take the first line, and I'm also going to remove the last line, like this. So now it's a lot more cleaner to read the deploy code. So really all you need is the script in the deploy code. Okay, the bottom line is used for, let's just say, that one of the browsers like Opera or Safari, and this almost never happens, but we have to have that code in there just in case. It'll say an error message, this data page cannot be displayed for whatever reason. Click here to load this data page. I have never ever in 5 years encountered this issue, but we have to have it in there just in case. So when you save the script now, you'll see that we're still going to display that same information. Okay, and both of the deploy codes are still working correctly. Okay, I would usually like to add, I would normally add a little bit of spacing here so it's not so close to my report. So then in the HTML world, we do that by adding just a simple line break like this. And usually that will fix that spacing for me like that. So it just adds a line or record underneath that. Okay. So every time you log in now, it's going to know your name. So usually a lot of applications have this. It's a nice welcome message so the user knows who they are. And if you haven't set up a logout link yet, to grab the logout link, you go to Authentications. And under Properties, you're going to be able to see that logout link right over here. And it's the same link for all of your authentications. So it's always going to be the same for every account. Okay. So you grab that, you copy that, and then we're going to go back to my data page. HTML welcome screen. And then right over here in between my quotes, we paste that logout link and click finish. And now that logout link should work. So refresh, log out, and there it is. Now, I'm actually happy. Hopefully everybody still has a couple more minutes here because at times, you know, when you deploy things, you're going to be able to see two login screens because this is really two data pages. This is the HTML data page, and this is the report. Okay, we have a really awesome tutorial on how to hide multiple login screens on your website. So if you ever end up in this scenario where your application has two login screens when you log out, if you go to How To, our knowledge base, and all you got to do is search for Hide Login Screen. And let's see here. It's Hide Multiple Login Forms. Okay, so you see this image, this illustration will show you that really you're hiding these and it's just showing you one login screen. This takes literally 1 minute to do. You just have to read through this. I already know how to do this. I'm going to walk you through it really quickly. You have to use these two codes first, so we're going to copy this one. And inside the authentication, for staff members, we're going to click on Edit. So I already built all of this for us earlier. And then what you're going to do for the login screen, you're going to insert header and footer. And inside the header, you're going to drop that first code. Just paste that in there. Then you're going to grab the div. So what you have to do is wrap all of these login screens or login fields in between this div, like that. You're going to click on Save. And then one last thing, what you have to do is grab the script. All you got to do is just copy this and paste that underneath your data pages. So basically, you have to paste that at the bottom of your data pages like this. Okay, and then you click on Save. Just make sure it's the very bottom of all of your data pages. And then let's just go ahead and click on Refresh now. And you can see now that login screen is hidden. So you only see one login screen. But when I log in as Mary, there are those two data pages. Now when I log out, just a single data page. Okay, so that's what that script does and that little bit of div. So again, it just takes a few seconds to do that. So if you ever run into that issue when you log out and you see multiple data pages, because you know at times you have to deploy multiple data pages on a single page, and you log out, then it's gonna, you know, you can use this code to do that. However, you can also do one more thing in the authentication screen. If you click on Edit, in the advanced settings, you can have a logout destination page wherever you want the users to be sent. So go to this, let's say http google.com, and you click on Save. See google.com here, and you can click on Save again. Let me show you, this is pretty cool here. So let's go to our login screen, refresh. Let's log in as Mary again. And when I log out, it's going to take me to google.com. Okay, so you can have a redirect page where you want the user to be sent when they log out of their account. Okay. Hopefully that helps some of you. There's a lot to cover, you know, it's, a lot of things come to mind when I build applications, and it's, again, like I always tell everybody else, it's a never-ending process building these apps. There's always something new you'd like to add. So hopefully today's session was beneficial for a lot of you. We did cover a lot of ground, and I was trying to speed through it because there was a lot to cover. I'm going to open up the line one more time now to see if there are any questions, and I'm also available offline if you need some assistance with anything you're looking to build.